I want to talk to you today about generosity and how to do good without sacrificing your own well-being. Keep listening to learn more. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Growth Philosophy Podcast, a bite-sized weekly podcast focused on empowering you to think better and upgrade your life. So let's talk about doing good. A noteworthy piece of research by the renowned psychologist Shalom Schwartz found that most people list giving as the most important value in life. Their most important value in life. The research, which was conducted across several countries, found that the vast majority of people care more about giving than they do about things like achievement, power, freedom, tradition, security, pleasure, and so on. This held true in over 70 countries, and giving is listed as the number one principle in life in the vast majority of the world's cultures. Sharing is caring, without a doubt, and it is one of the most important values in our lives. When people think about generous people, they generally tend to think about people like Mother Teresa or Mahatma Gandhi. The act of generosity demonstrated by those two people is legendary. There is no question about that. However, there is a problem with that line of thinking. The problem is that most people think generosity means prioritizing the needs of others over your own. And that to be generous and to help others, you need to sacrifice your own needs and wants. Like Mother Teresa and Mahatma Gandhi did. This often leads to two big issues. It either stops people from being generous, or it prompts people to sacrifice their own well-being. So it's time to revisit and review the general understanding of generosity. The common belief about generosity isn't really an accurate one, because you do not have to sacrifice your own life to be generous, to help others, or to do good. It's not an either-or scenario. You absolutely can look after yourself and help others. They do mix well, and win-win scenarios certainly are possible. Self-sacrifice isn't the only option, or even the best one. So the two big misconceptions when it comes to being generous and helping others are, number one, that helping others and doing good means that you have to sacrifice yourself. And number two, that you need to be selfish to take care of yourself. Let's explore those misconceptions in more detail now. So the first one is about selfishness. For several years in my late 20s, I believed that I needed to learn how to be more selfish. I came to this conclusion because my need for helping others often superseded my own needs and wants, which usually came at a personal cost. I had what you'd call a martyr syndrome. Growing up, I used to always put the needs of others over my own, to the extent that I would give up the things I needed to help others, often at a detrimental cost to my own life. This led to a lot of frustrations and was also behind the belief that I needed to learn how to be more selfish, to counteract my selflessness. But over the years, I've learned that life is not a zero-sum game, and I've realized that I do not actually need to be more selfish. That was a flawed idea. Instead, what I needed was to learn to be more aware and to act in ways that not only helped others but also took my own needs and wants into account. That was my lesson from my struggles and something I had to learn the hard way. But hopefully you can learn from my struggles and my experiences. You see, you do not have to sacrifice your own needs and wants to do good for others. It might seem like you need to, especially if you were brought up on religious values of giving and societal values of doing more for others than for yourself. However, prioritizing your own needs is just as important as being there for others, if not more. The great news is that you can look after yourself and others. You can do things to improve your own life and help improve the lives of others too. You don't have to choose one or the other. Here's an example from my own life to demonstrate this fact. For me, giving and helping others is one of the most important values in life. And a big part of that now involves activities like writing and talking about my ideas, experiences, and my own life lessons. This way I can help others, but can generally do so without having to sacrifice my own needs or wants. If anything, they complement each other well, as often this drive that I have for helping others and making a positive impact encourages me to learn even more and go even further than I normally would have, which in turn helps me learn more valuable things. So it's a win-win scenario for me. This way I can have a positive impact on others while also having a positive impact on my own life. You can figure things out like that too, and plan your life in ways that help you to help both yourself and others. At the end of the day, it is perfectly normal to want to look after your own interests and to want good things in life. Looking after yourselves is a hard-coded biological imperative. It's hard-coded. It's a part of our instinct, survival instinct. But doing good does not go against that instinct. If anything, it can complement that instinct, as by helping others, we can improve our own lives and make the world a better place. It's a win-win thing. Generosity and selflessness are not synonymous. They're not synonymous. Being generous, which includes doing good deeds, is not the same thing as being selfless. That's a very common misconception, so let's get clear on that. Being generous is not the same thing as being selfless. Doing good does not automatically involve sacrificing your own needs and wants. You don't need to be selfless like Mother Teresa to do good and help others. You do not need to sacrifice your own happiness and well-being to make a positive impact. The fact is that you absolutely can choose to help others and help yourself too. You can do both. Helping others does not need to mean self-sacrifice, so do not let that put you off from doing more than you can for others. And also, do not let that misconception stop you from looking after yourself. Because the truth is that you do not have to be selfless to help others. The second major myth and barrier about doing good is that looking after yourself is a selfish thing to do. This is one of the biggest myths when it comes to doing good and being there for others. This misconception that self-care is selfish often creates a lot of misunderstandings and even causes a lot of unhappiness. I know this from personal experience. There is this common belief that you cannot look after yourself and look after others too. This belief that you can only be there for others by sacrificing own needs and wants is a very prevalent one. And it mainly comes from religious texts which focuses on how selfless people like Jesus or Muhammad were, and creates this notion that doing good and being generous does not leave any room for looking after your own needs and wants. It creates this idea that you have to be selfless to be there for others, and as such, looking after yourself is a selfish thing to do. That belief, it centers around a zero-sum game idea. It's an either-or scenario. It is built on the notion that helping others means you cannot help yourself and vice versa. However, that is an inaccurate assumption. And even though looking after your own well-being is often thought of as a selfish act, that could not be further from the truth. Let's take the religious perspective. Pretty much every religious text you look at makes it clear just how important it is to look after your own well-being. The Quran, for example, talks about how not looking after your own health is a sin and goes against the prophetic principles. The Bible and the Torah also have similar principles and look into how important it is to actually take care of yourself and look after your own well-being. So if you are a person of faith, this should be ample justification about the need for self-care. Now, in case you're not someone who believes in religions, even then the idea of looking after your own needs to take precedence. Looking after others needing to take priority over looking after your personal well-being is a faulty one, even from a general perspective, or whatever philosophy you think about. Even from a moral or humanist point of view, looking after yourself is just as important as looking after others, because as immoral as it is to not help others, it is also immoral to make yourself suffer. All suffering is immoral at the end of the day, right? Whether you subscribe to a religious, spiritual, or a humanist point of view, or even a more general moralist perspective, looking after yourself is never something that has to take precedence over looking after others, and vice versa. Even though most of us have been brought up on ideas of selflessness, and even though the modern-day individualistic society operates on the idea that you need to choose being selfish or selfless, neither of those perspectives are accurate. More than that, neither of those points of views are in our best interest, or in your best interest for that matter, because they opt for an either-or scenario, when in reality you can actually choose both. There is a middle ground, a win-win scenario, and that is the best part. When you shift your perspective from those binary beliefs and really examine things, you'll realize that you do not actually need to choose either being selfless or selfish. It is not an either-or choice. When you review your options, you will see that there is a middle ground, a win-win scenario, where your personal needs can be balanced with your desire for being generous and doing good. There is a caveat to this though, because there are instances where self-sacrifice can be important, like in a war or an apocalyptic scenario. But it's unlikely that you will ever face a life and death scenario like that, so I'll leave you to deal with that with using your best judgment. In a scenario like that, you can decide for yourself what the best course of action is. For about 90% of people and scenarios, life and death situations might never be a real thing to deal with. So, as far as this talk is concerned, we will focus on the practicalities of our daily lives. And as far as our daily, day-to-day life situations are concerned, self-sacrifice isn't an essential part of life. The important thing to remember is that you can be there for yourself and others too. It's rarely ever an either-or scenario. You absolutely can be generous without being selfish, in the same way that you can look after your own needs and do good for others. It doesn't have to be or need to be an either-or choice. I believe that if we can change this zero-sum mentality, this belief that you can't help others without sacrificing your own needs, we can promote the idea of giving and being generous even more. So we can actually do more good when we shift this idea. Once more people realize that selflessness is not a prerequisite of doing good and being generous, and that we can improve our own lives as well as that of others without needing to choose one or the other, people will become more open to doing good, as they won't need to worry about sacrificing their own needs and wants. and vice versa. Here's the bottom line. Life is not a zero-sum game, and looking after yourself is not a selfish act. Remembering these can help you to not only do more good for others, it can also help you to become happier, more successful, and healthier. You do not need to be selfish to take care of yourself, and neither do you need to be selfless to help others and do good. Life, at the end of the day, is a balancing act, and you can balance looking after yourself with doing good, and should. Because at the end of the day, if you're no good to yourself, you won't be able to help others either. So think in terms of win-win scenarios rather than self-sacrifice. Do more good, not only for yourself but for others too. And remember that looking after yourself doesn't just help you, it helps others too.